Is our live stream going?
As soon as you start.
Okay. Welcome everyone to the meeting of Komiti Hanganga, the Infrastructure and Regulatory Committee of the 7th of March. Welcome to members of the public who may be watching our meeting on Council's Facebook page. You can see the emergency procedures up on the screen there. Essentially, follow the directions of our staff. They know what they're doing. And please, if you could switch your mobile phones to silent. Invite you to join with me in our karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, ihi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauriora. Thank you. Apologies. I've received an apology from Councillor Tupou, who is ill. I haven't received any other apologies. Are there any apologies for lateness or early departure anyone's aware of? Okay, I move that the apology from Councillor Tupou be accepted and leave of absence be granted. Seconded Councillor Stellinger. All those in favour say aye. Against? Declare that carried. Thank you. Public comment. I don't think there's any member of the public who wants to speak to us today. Conflict of interest declarations. Does any member have a conflict of interest they wish to declare? Right, let's get into it. Item 5, recommendations to the committee on our asset management policy. John Kingsbury, our Director Economy and Development, will speak to this item.
Thank you, Chair. We will take the report as read, but just noting a lot of work has gone into this policy, which was identified as a key area of improvement for Council. It's to ensure consistency and coordination of asset management across Council. We would also note that this is for Council-owned assets and will form the basis of any interactions we might have in co-owned assets with other councils or other entities. Open to any questions.
Councillors, are there any questions on this report? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, thank you. The draft policy, it's a good policy and there's a really good set of principles in there. That's largely what it's composed of. I was just kind of curious, in a case-by-case basis, how priority might be given to some of these principles over others when we're making decisions.
Thank you, Councillor. So we would work through from down the list in terms of those priorities. Should there be any questions around conflicting priorities, then we'd take time to assess and check in with the asset owners. Yeah.
Any further questions on asset management policy? No, the recommendations are that we note and receive the report and approve it, which I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dyer. Anyone want to make comment? Right, put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Clear that carried. We're on to page 20 to talk about raised crossings on Harcourt-Wherry Drive and Waifatu Waterloo Road roundabout area. And Anita Manda, our traffic engineer, is going to highlight to us any extra information she wants us to be aware of.
Thanks, Chair. After the draft agenda meeting, the latest development is that we have heard from the Riverlink team and the GW team that they have full support for this crossing because they are doing some improvements on the Mill Street stop bank, and the cyclists have requested for a formal crossing opportunity because all of them will be diverted elsewhere. So they have showed that support. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that. It's going to be important. Councillor Dyer has some questions.
Yeah, just a question on that. Obviously, the traffic's already been diverted now, and that crossing is where they're diverting traffic for this whole year. Is the plan that this crossing would be upgraded while it's being used as a detour now, or wouldn't come into play until after October?
The latest I heard, the diversion will be in place for 6 months, not 8 months from Robbie. But the construction of this proposed crossing is planned to be delivered before June because we are yet to decide some things from Wakakatahi as well. Not quite sure how it aligns with the diversion just yet because this is the latest development, but we'll keep you posted.
And then I've got some other questions as well. Obviously, in the initial proposals and what went out to the public, we were proposing to reduce the speed from 70 to 50 and have this as a dual crossing. But what's in the paper now is saying retain the speed at 70 and just put a single crossing in. Just wondering why the shift from what we proposed.
Evandro will answer the question.
Thanks for the question. With regards to the speed limit changes, we are discussing with NZTA on their requirements. Generally, they require us to install a crossing facility on an area that operates at 50 kilometers per hour. Taking into account that the speed limit is currently 70, we have decided to propose driver feedback signs on both approaches to the crossing facility as a way to encourage a slow speed reduction. And the raised crossing by itself is also expected to promote a slow speed reduction. Given these factors into account, we will be installing initially the driver feedback sign to test if we'll be effective in terms of speed limit reduction. If unsuccessful, we may change the speeds to 50 kilometers per hour.
Okay, so if NZTA wants it to be 50 and we consulted on it being 50, I'm just confused why we're now saying we're going to keep it at 70. Like
Yes.
a raised crossing, you're going to have to slow down to hit the raised crossing. So
Yes.
would it not make sense just to drop the speed?
According to the NZTA guidelines, we should reduce the speed to 50 on situations on which there is an urban environment. In that specific location, as there are no properties in the vicinity, and the main crossing point is where the crossing facility has been proposed, the environment is slightly different than urban scenarios where we would have reduced the speed to 50 in general situations. In addition to that, for the New Zealand Police to do an enforcement and in areas where it's not an urban environment, for them it's hard to do that speed limit assessment. So that's why we are planning to initially have the driver feedback signs on both approaches to the crossing.
Okay, and so what's changed from when we consulted saying we were going to drop the speed to now keeping it at 70?
What changed is that for the changes to 50 kilometers per hour, we would need an approval from NZTA, which would take a little bit longer for that to be approved. So given that we do have a limited time frame for the delivery, we would be going for this option initially, and we'll seek for their advice to understand how it's going to be effective with the driver feedback signs.
And we consulted on doing a dual crossing for cyclists and pedestrians.
Yes.
But the paper's now saying we're not going to do that. We're just going to do a raised crossing, and maybe down the future we'll do a dual crossing.
Yes.
For the sake of a little extra paint, would not make sense just to do it now when this is connecting to the.
Generally, dual crossing facilities are installed when there are two cycle lanes connecting from one point to another. That is not the current situation. However, given that once Riverlink comes on board, the area is going to be formalized as a shared path or cycle lane facility. So at that stage, we are going to upgrade the crossing onto a dual lane. In terms of the design, we have worked on the same dimensions as a dual lane crossing facility just to make it easier for the upgrades to occur later on.
Okay, so we consulted on the dual crossing and the speeds. 100% of the submission said fully support reducing the speed, fully support a dual crossing for cyclists. And now the proposal is to do completely opposite of that. So I'm just kind of a bit at a loss why.
Yes.
I kind of understand the reasons you're saying, but they don't really seem like good reasons as to why we wouldn't put in a safer crossing and why we wouldn't reduce the speed for this small stretch.
Thanks for the question. So the crossing facility will continue to be safe as designed. With regards to the dual lane crossing facility, the expectation is that now with the current layout, drivers will need to dismount before crossing the road because there is a steep element as well on top of on the side road where we have the footpath. Once we implement the changes with Riverlink, we may adjust the levels, so that's going to be safer for cyclists to then stop before to continue traveling, crossing the road as in the dual lane facility.
Can I just jump in just around the speed too, and just let everyone know that in terms of the speed, and we went through the citywide speed program last year and consulted on that. I'm happy to say that has just been certified by NZTA. So we'll be coming back with that citywide speed program and a rollout plan in the coming meetings to test your views on which area should go first, noting that Harcourt Wary is on there. But that will also be tied in with funding from outside the within the National Land Transport Program. So we just need to tie that in, but that would be the time to look at a more formalised speed all the way through there, noting that there are a number of issues along Harcourt Wary, and as Councillor Dye knows, particularly down towards Fraser Park, but we don't want to be in a situation where we're going 50, 70, 50, 70 up and down all the way through. We want to have a consistent speed and make it safer. So that'll be coming back in the future.
Could I follow up with a question on the dual crossing aspect of it? Andrew, you've told us with quite a steep sort of approach towards it, it would seem safer for cyclists to get off and walk across the crossing. Knowing some cyclist behaviour, maybe some of them are unlikely to do that. And I think of the dual crossing that we've already got in the city, the one in Marsden Street, which I cycle through a lot. It works very well, and there's quite a steep incline towards it. So is your advice to us that at this stage we cannot make that a dual crossing, or are you saying, what are you saying?
What I was trying to say with the steep element is that if we would allow a dual lane cycle facility, we may, as cyclists may be exposed to cross the road from the steepness section of the road onto the Riverlink area without stopping before crossing the road. So currently they are going to be encouraged to dismount from their bikes and then cross the road at the crossing facility. Once the changes from Riverlink will be implemented, we are going to adjust that steepness element. So in that sense, we will be able to encourage them to cross the road safely as the steepest elements are going to be eliminated.
Can I just relay that advice that John has just given me, that once we're at that stage that Andrew has just described with Riverlink, we don't need to come back and get extra permissions. We can go ahead and make that a dual crossing. I guess we need Councillor Mitchell has a question.
Sorry, I have a few about this one and about the design and the speed of it. So just for my clarity, what is a driver feedback sign? What does it tell a driver?
The driver feedback signs are those flashing signs that indicate the speed that drivers are traveling at. So the intention is to have these driver feedback signs in advance on both sides of the crossing in advance. That would be a first step for drivers to slow down before getting on to seeing the crossing facility itself. And as I said, the crossing, as it's going to be raised, is going to also work as a speed calming device element.
So a driver feedback sign, usually in my experience, shows the speed limit for that area, which in this case is 70. And if you were going above 70, would tell you to slow down. But if you were going 69, it wouldn't tell you to slow down. And I don't really see how that's telling someone to slow down as opposed to a change in speed limit.
What we are going to be doing is once we implement the driver feedback sign, we'll do a monitoring of the speed limit to understand if there's going to be a change from a driver perception. If that is not going to be successful, we need to seek further advice to change the speed limits across the entire road, as John was saying, that requires NZTA's approval, which will take a little bit longer for us to deliver the project.
And what is the recommended speed for driving over a raised platform?
The recommended speed for driving over a raised platform, that's an answer that I would need to seek further advice. However, the expectation is that drivers, when traveling on top of the speed hump itself, they are likely to be traveling at a speed of 15 kilometers or less. Generally, we install these supplementary signs to also advise drivers that they should be traveling at 15 kilometers per hour or less than that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I think some of the ones I've seen have a 30 sign next to them. Some other speed humps have a 15. I'm just really concerned that people are going to drive down that road, see a sign that tells them it's okay, you're going below 70, and then come to a raised platform where they should actually be going 15. That's about a quarter of the speed they might be approaching at, or a fifth, I don't know. But yeah, it doesn't really feel like we're giving them enough notice, actually, of something that's presenting a hazard to them if they're going at that speed down that road.
Generally, the NZTA signs for speed humps do have the supplementary 15 and 25 signs. So this is going to be also in accordance to their guidelines.
Yeah, those signs, I think, sit on the raised platforms. But the other question I had about this one was about the consultation. There's some notes there about it that say that residents and cyclist groups and emergency services were consulted, and there was zero public feedback in the initial consultation, at least. In terms of residents, nobody lives around there. So which residents were consulted on this?
We initially planned to do letter drops around on Fairway Drive and other areas, but that was we held back on it because it was too far from the crossing, so no residents were consulted.
So just in terms of people who use this road, and some people probably use it every day, how did they know about this proposal, and what chance did they have to feed into it if they weren't cyclists?
For now, we have only consulted the cyclist groups who actively use that section of the road. We haven't consulted with the wider public who use it as a general route of travel. Yeah.
And is the same question I have for the other one, actually, on Waterloo Road, Waifetu Road. I can see that some residents, clearly from the comments, living very close to that roundabout, were consulted. But again, that's a road that hundreds of people use every day. How did they have a chance to give feedback on this proposal?
Yeah, I think this is where we had the conversation with the comms and engagement team as well, just going forward with for all the future projects. We really want to put up the prospects of a crossing or whatever improvement that we're suggesting on the council website and get wider feedback, because it's not just residents or businesses that's around the area that's getting affected, but it's a wider impact. So we're trying to see how we can tie in all of that feedback as well, but it's still a work in progress.
The other final question I had, which again, sorry, is about the design of Harcourt Wherry Drive. The crossings that we've proposed on Cambridge and Oxford Terrace, which are 50-kilometre streets, I think from memory they all have a island refuge in the middle so people can take the crossing of that street one step at a time over the 2 lanes. And from memory, the explanation was because of the speed and busyness of the roads, this is an equally busy and faster road. I was just curious why we haven't chosen to include a refuge in the middle of this crossing.
I believe there's a refuge in the crossing. It's just that the concept design is not able to show. We're going to refine the design in the detail design stage. But I'm pretty sure there will be a refuge because I think currently there is kind of a refuge there with some handrails and.
Can I, before you ask your question, Brady, give notice of a proposed amendment to recommendation 2, and that is, because we've heard these legitimate questions come up, that we approve the installation of a new raised crossing at Harcourt Wherry Drive east of Kennedy Good Bridge, subject to speed advisory arrangement approval by Mayor and Chairs, the Mayor and Chairs. We would hand it over to the Mayor and Chairs because there is some urgency about this. We've got to get it done before June. We want to make it safer for cyclists and pedestrians, but some of the concerns that have been raised can be addressed. So with that in mind, that I'll be moving that amendment. Have you got further questions?
Do, but it probably could be picked up at Mayors and Chairs. It was just more around that slip road. Is that now going to be a stop sign, or what's happening with that slip road? Is it going? But we can get into the details then.
Okay, there's no further questions.
So I do have further questions on.
You do have further questions?
On Waterloo.
On Waterloo, go.
Yeah. Obviously, Waterloo Road, the entrance into the roundabout on Waterloo Road now is currently 2 lanes. So one car can go right, one car can go left. We're proposing to narrow that down to 1 lane and make the footpath 5 metres wide. I'm just wondering if we undertaken like traffic modelling to know what impact that's going to have. Like I use this roundabout fairly frequently and there are always 2 cars sitting there, one going right, one going left. By reducing that to 1, I feel like it's going to have quite a big unforeseen consequence. I'm just wondering, have we checked how that will affect things?
We have certainly looked into it. The concern from the lanes going from 2 lanes to 1 lane is definitely understandable. The main reason that we are proposing to do that is because usually the thumb rule for providing a raised pedestrian crossing is that pedestrians are not expected to cross 2 lanes at once. Usually they're only having to cross 1 lane at once and take a refuge and then cross again. So we wanted to give that safety perception to the pedestrians while crossing it. But from a congestion point of view, we have had site visits and we have observed the traffic patterns during the peak hours, and we have come to a conclusion that the effect that it might have on the queuing before the intersection will not be as much significant. We don't have the numbers from the traffic modeling because we have not undertaken the exercise, but it is not expected to be significant.
Is there any requirement that we do? Like this is the main arterial route through our city. I feel like there'd be some trigger that we do have to actually do some traffic modelling. Once it hits a certain threshold, like we're halving the amount of cars that can get through this intersection, I would have thought there would have been some trigger. If it's a main road, we're reducing the throughput, we do have to do traffic modelling or something.
I'm not exactly sure about the mandatory requirement, but we can undertake it as a supplementary exercise for sure because it's quite straightforward and quite quick with the traffic volumes and stuff. It's a simple SIDRA modeling exercise, so we can add that as a supplementary exercise while doing the detailed design.
Can I just add, Councillor, this is quite significant safety risks for pedestrians, for people using other modes outside of vehicles. So the team, as Anita was saying, have been on site and observed on a number of occasions. We do hear about the risks of saying, and we're prioritising the safety of all road users by doing this. Yes, it will create potentially longer queues, although it shouldn't be too significant. But that's, yeah, we're trying to make it a safer environment for everybody, hence bringing the paper today.
Thank you. And then there was quite a bit of feedback around the islands and it blocking entrances and exits into driveways. I just wanted to check, it's hard to tell from the appendix. Are we proposing to install any islands on Waifatu Road that would hinder people getting in and out of their driveways, particularly 222A, 2224, and then I think it's 220 where there's 20 flats down their driveway. They had concerns that these changes, but it looks like there's no proposed changes on there, but there are boxes that are new, so I'm not sure what those new boxes are.
Yeah. As far as the concept sketch goes, and as far as my understanding goes, we haven't obstructed any of the driveways from my discussions with the designer. But this will be picked up in the detailed design stage for sure to make sure we're not causing those obstructions.
Mayor Barry.
Thank you. I suppose the question I would ask here in our role is, you can give us absolute confidence in regards to the process that's been undertaken, that traffic considerations, safety considerations, this is best practice, normal practice in regards to what you've proposed here, and we won't have any unavoided consequences of that. So just giving, that's our role to have that reassurance, and that's what I think has been asked here through a number of the questions.
Speaking from a traffic engineering and a project management point of view, we have considered from a design point of view, from cyclist point of view, from pedestrian safety point of view, we have considered every aspect that we could in the design process. But what we have observed, just speaking from my experience, if you remember, Mayor, when we actually presented the paper for Fairway Drive crossing, we have had such overwhelming response from everybody, and from JNS Science, and from people who live around. But when the crossing is being constructed right now, and there's definitely people who are against it, so I feel like no matter how much consideration we give to a project from every aspect of the design, there will still be a little bit of a room for people to complain, because that's the nature of the projects.
That wasn't my question. My question was, you can give us a guarantee that we have followed best practice with the design and with what is being proposed here, and it lines up with other crossings and how we approach things across the city, and how things are approached across the country.
Yeah, I'll leave Evandro to answer.
Thanks for the question. We do follow national guidelines when choosing the design of our projects. As part of the projects do have phases related to road safety audits and inspections that are carried out internally and also externally. So we can make sure that the project will be safely installed. With regards to elements such as the issues raised with regards to driveway entrances and
I don't want to be rude, but it's a very simple question. The answer should be yes for us to be able to support this. That's all I'm asking for. Okay? Thank you.
Further questions? All right, I'm going to ask Judy to put the recommendations up on the screen with the amendment. The amendment we'll deal with first. But just to read it out while it is going up there, that we approve, so recommendation 2 becomes, with the amendment, we approve the installation of a new raised crossing at Harcourt Wherry Drive, east of Kennedy Good Bridge, subject to speed advisory arrangement approval by Mayor and Chairs. There it is. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Stallinger. Anyone wish to speak on the amendment or ask a question about it? I'll put the amendment. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Declare that carried. Becomes part of the substantive motion. We've got 3 recommendations in front of us, which I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stallinger. Anyone wish to make comment? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm a little bit tempted not to support these recommendations, although the urgency of the second one certainly is a consideration, and I understand there's at least going to be further discussion about that one amongst the mayors and chairs, and hopefully we'll come to the best outcome. And not to vote against them because I don't think this is important work, or that I don't think they've been designed to good standards out of textbooks or manuals. My biggest concern is about the human factor in all of this. And as I alluded to in my questions, that actually this will have the biggest impact on people who drive cars. They'll be numerically the people who encounter this the most. All in favour of keeping pedestrians and cyclists safe, but I just feel that we're going ahead with this without those people having had a chance to give their input. And we heard from Councillor Dyer, his input as a driver, and some very insightful thinking about how one particular intersection works. So I think we're missing an opportunity, A, to take people with us on this rollout of raised platforms and crossings across the whole city, B, to gain some really good insight from our residents that may actually impact on how the design is finalised and what we go ahead with. I took a look through council's comms over the past couple of years, and a couple of years ago we did consult about the placement of raised platforms on 7th Street in Nainai. And initially there was some good feedback from residents. Initially we didn't listen to them, but we've come around and listened to them and actually shifted one in accordance with what the public wanted there. Since then, we told people we were doing a raised platform on Connolly Street. We told people we were doing on Fairway Drive, except for the residents around there. And I think that we are going to annoy drivers, and we are potentially going to miss out on better outcomes by consulting people more broadly on these. And I think that part of consultation will be that you'll get people complaining about it and telling us not to do it, but that's not actually what we're looking for in our consultation. We're looking for the best outcomes, the best designs, the best placement, the best speed treatments around these things. And I really think that we're missing out on something here. So yeah, I guess I would foreshadow that I think that we should take our own advice and slow down a bit on all of this. And I'd really like to see a plan of what's coming next in this work program. I'm the ward councillor for the Waterloo-Waifetu Road one. I had no idea we were consulting on this. I couldn't promote the consultation to local residents and encourage them to give their input. You know, there have been one or two others in my ward that I found out by gossip on Facebook or some other means. But yeah, I think we're missing a big piece in all of this, which is giving people a chance to have a say and to provide us with some valuable input that will have a better result at the end of the day.
Thanks, Councillor. So noting that, and you know, we will definitely have a look at the consultation for these. I mean, generally, like with you know, speed humps and those things, that is the houses most close to those and the people and shops in the immediate vicinity, not necessarily ones who may be travelling through as much. I suppose with the raised pedestrian platform program, which you know, there is time limited funding on those. So we have a number of those safety improvements where 30th of June, that's it. So if they're not delivered by then they go into the pot for consideration in the next 3 years with no guarantee of funding. So that's the predicament we're in here. Yeah.
And does that apply to both of these ones in front of us today?
That's correct.
Any further comment?
Thanks, Councillor. We can commit to ramping up our comms over the next couple of months before they're delivered by June. Yeah, and agree with taking people on the journey instead of just being told that this is happening to people. So agree, we can do that. Yeah.
Thanks for that. And I think those observations that Councillor Mitchell has made are very valid, although I think motorists will tend to oppose these things. But as Councillor Mitchell said, it's the gems that might be amongst that feedback that can be useful. Councillor Dyer, have you got a comment?
Yeah, I feel very similar to Councillor Mitchell, and I probably won't articulate it as good as him, but I do think we have dropped the ball a bit with these. I'm worried that we are signing off what might not be the best outcome for these crossings, noting the differences between the raised crossings that we have done, where we have also not done much consultation, the ones where we have. The outcomes we've got haven't just been improvements to pedestrians crossing the road, they've been greater outcomes, with one being now more aligned to a park, and little things like that that make absolutely no difference to the cost or anything like that, but the outcomes at the end of the day are better through getting that feedback. And from these, I'm not seeing sufficient evidence that we've done that enough. We can't even see the letters that were sent out to the residents. You can kind of decipher from the feedback from the cyclist group that it used to be 50 and it was a dual crossing, but nothing in our papers today say that's what we consulted on. You're kind of having to read between the lines to work that out, but the consultation letter that we sent out should be in these papers so we can see what we actually said to the public, what we were going to do. And I feel a bit uneasy that what we're now proposing to do is quite different than what we proposed through the consultation. So fully understand the time pressures, and I know that what's being proposed today will have an improvement. I would just feel much more comfortable if I'd known more, if there was more of that. So I think I will support it, but hoping we can tidy this up a bit through mayors and chairs.
All right. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to support this because I feel very strongly that a lot of the times we put down as a council because of the lack of consultation. And I'm not convinced that we have consulted enough, that we've heard the voices of the people enough. It's been said from across the room that there's a lot of gems we could have been missing out on had we consulted more fully or whatever. I hear from the officers, I respect the work that they're doing. They've said that they're taking on board, that they'll consult more fully down the road. I respect that. However, we haven't heard that up till now. And I just think we've got a bit more work to do yet.
All right. If that's the end of comment, a question? Very quickly.
Yeah, I'm just curious about this June deadline, and if either of these were to be laid on the table today till the next meeting cycle, can we still meet a June deadline? I mean, we can still go ahead and tell our contractors we're planning to do them. It's just that we won't have the plans finalised as quickly.
Councillor, I'm not sure about the construction timing, but I suspect that the next cycle wouldn't allow enough time to construct.
I would say in terms of the Waipatu Waterloo Road intersection, I really don't know where else you would put the crossings to serve pedestrians other than where they're located. But I do appreciate the comments that consultation might have thrown up some good suggestions. Mayor Barry.
Can I just say I completely understand the concerns of Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Barrett, Councillor Dyer around the process on consultation. My view is I'm going to support it because I don't want to delay or potentially have a funding issue with this, and I think it is right. But I just want to put, I suppose, my view on notice that in the future, if this comes up again and I'm not confident, as others have raised around that consultation on a main road, one that we will get significant feedback on, will be councillors, will be myself as mayor who will be feeling that. Then I won't support it. So if I'm not confident in the future for matters like this, I will not support it, and I'll vote it down. So I just want to, I suppose, put us on notice that will be my view in the future if we don't up our game with that consultation.
Yep, I see some heads nodding on that one. All right, I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Declare that carried. Thank you. Moving on to page 37 and a Three Waters update. I'd invite Bruce Hodgins, Strategic Advisor, to the table to highlight to us anything extra we need to know on this topic.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's just a couple of things that I want to mention in relation to this report. I also would like to introduce Blair Johnson from Wellington Water. So Blair is responsible for managing the contract with Veolia at the wastewater treatment plant. So if you've got any specific questions around that, then Blair may well be able to answer them. So the two things I just wanted to raise, the first one was in terms of paragraph 24. You've put in that $13 million into the draft long-term plan. What we've done is say to Wellington Water, we want you to start working on that now. So just want to emphasise that. So they've put a team together and they have commenced that work in due of the seriousness of this issue that we have. The second thing I was going to just relay to you is under paragraph 25, the public meetings that we're going to schedule. So it's usual for one meeting a year. We're going to have 4 at the moment. So we're going to increase that to a quarterly meeting so that we can give those people that are particularly concerned about this odour issue an update on what is happening and our progress on that work. So the next meeting is planned for the 21st of March. So only a few days away, really. So just let you know that that is happening. Other than that, welcome any questions.
Councillors, questions? Councillor Mitchell.
Thanks. I'll throw one on the wastewater first, actually, because it explains in there that once we renewed all this biofilter cells, we then found a problem with the air distribution system underneath, which I guess was hidden. But my broader question is, are we confident that we understand well enough all of the causes of odour problems at the plant, or is there more work to be done to try and find out what might be causing those problems?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I think we're confident that we know the odorous areas of the plant that need to be addressed. The biofilter media replacement was scheduled, and yes, you're right, the air distribution structure underneath the biofilter media itself needed to be excavated before we understood exactly the condition of it. However, we did expect it to have degraded over time. The other areas of the plant that currently, the odour treatment plant system manages the most odorous areas of the plant, such as the milliscreens, which is the primary treatment area of the plant. Doesn't treat the milliscreen room atmosphere, and that vents to atmosphere. And so that's one of the areas that we would look at in terms of the additional funding and upgrade of the plant. The other area is the dryer. A similar sort of situation there. The dryer itself is ventilated through the air treatment plant, through the biofilter, but the room itself is not. So part of the process, or part of the project, is to assess those areas that are most odorous and that the plant would benefit most from the investment from.
Sorry, just to follow up there, I think I heard you say that you kind of expected the air distribution system to need work, but reading from the papers here, it wasn't planned to do that work if it was found that it was needed. So now there's a delay. So in terms of future work, is it worth planning more thoroughly what else you might have to do depending on what you discover there, so it can be done more quickly or in one go?
I think the situation with the air distribution structure was that it wasn't well understood underneath drawings and plan-wise, and so the excavation was required to fully assess what was going on underneath the biofilter media itself. And we decided at the time that it was best to proceed with the biofilter media replacement than to delay those works and work on the structure at the same time.
Councillor Dyer.
So how and when will the air distribution system be upgraded?
So that's part of the planning work that's underway now. We're planning to do that, I'm told, this winter. So that will happen somewhere around the middle of this year.
And whereabouts are we publicising those public meetings? Are the quarterly meetings?
So we have an interested party listing that people can register for, and we ensure that those people are informed directly via email, and we also publicise it on the Wellington Water website.
And just a further question on the comms. Obviously, I was at that public meeting where there was a pretty big assurance that we were going to start front-footing the comms, and I just feel like we haven't done that yet on this. The last comms I saw was biofilter media has been fixed ahead of schedule, and give it 3 or 4 weeks and everything will be honky-dory, but it's now reading this report that's not going to be the case. I'm just wondering, are we going to be doing regular comms with the people on that interested group, or are we going to say, hey, you've got to come to this meeting to find out what's happening?
Yes, I think there's a couple of things there. I don't think we ever said it was all going to be fixed once the biofilter media was replaced. We knew that that was an important step to take. We are currently working on, at a request from the council, on a broader communication plan, and we're reporting through various channels on a monthly basis, mainly through our website. The request has been made that in addition to the quarterly CLG meetings, that we push communications out to the community on a monthly basis, which is the plan at the moment. There's a broad number of people involved in the upgrade program at the plant, so it's a matter of capturing that in a single sort of communications plan, which is the work that's been undertaken at the moment. But yet, yes, I would expect that there'll be at least monthly communications going out to interested parties. Most of that information will be replicated on the Wellington Water website under the Seaview Plant page.
The other thing that we've also asked Wellington Water to do, and has been implemented, is any time that work is being done by Veolia on parts of the plant that might mean that there is a greater chance of odour, that gets publicly notified to all of those people that have registered with Wellington Water as being concerned about that issue. So that is happening now, and we will be ensuring that you as councillors also get that information, so that if you get any inquiries, you know about it.
Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. It's good to hear that we're moving on with this again, and you've found out what needs to be done, so it's great. Following on from Councillor Dyer, that meeting also had iwi representatives there, so I'm just confirming that they will be engaged with this new communications plan.
Yes, that's correct. They will be, and we have, well, I'd call it a communications channel, but we have a link directly through our iwi engagement manager to ensure that process happens.
Another one, Councillor Dyer.
Yeah, obviously the paper talks about there's already been some significant enforcement and penalties issued to all everyone involved. Has there been any communication with GWRC about any future penalties that may be coming from, obviously the issues they were dealing with were last year, and there's been quite a period of time where things still haven't been fixed yet. Are we expecting more to come down the line?
The GW, well, they are informed of any odour complaints that come through Wellington Water. They also receive odour complaints directly. In fact, the majority of the complaints that are coming from the community are going now via GW. We communicate regularly with Greater Wellington to ensure that they're aware of what our program is and what we're doing about it. They also communicate directly with us whenever they send enforcement officers out to respond to any complaints. And it will depend on what they find on any particular day or when they attend any complaint as to what they find. The threshold is objectionable and offensive odour beyond the boundary. That's the consent condition. And yes, it's likely that there will be infringements if they deem that odour to be offensive and objectionable beyond the boundary. Yeah.
If I can also just add to that, Mr. Chairman, that we are, Wellington Water and ourselves are in discussions with GW in regards to what sort of controls we're going to be putting in place, what work program we're putting in place. So having some sort of agreement with Greater Wellington about the implementation of the works that will get us to a point of being able to say we've done everything possible to eliminate this issue. And so that we will have some formal type of agreement with them regarding that.
Mayor Barry.
No, thank you. Two questions. I think the report, I can't quite find the page, but the report had the complaints up till I think the 31st of January. Just interested to know if we have any more live numbers in regards to February, March.
Yes, we do. We received, I think it was 41 complaints in January and 31 complaints in February. And we've had a number this month as well.
Also, just I suppose particularly to give the council confidence, are we doing absolutely everything we can for what is in our control to obviously for the work that needs to be done to the plant to mitigate the odour issues as much as possible and as quickly as possible?
We're working very closely with Veolia to ensure that they are managing odour as best they can. I guess the nature of the plant is that it does create, the processes do create odour. Mechanical failures and repairs and maintenance work to fix those mechanical failures generally result in odorous activities. So we are doing as much as we can to mitigate odours coming from the plant as best we can, including, ensuring that rooms are kept closed, that odour blaster is in operation at all times, and covers are in place where they should be.
So you've got those sort of shorter term mitigation, which we're doing everything we can, which is great. And then also the longer term mitigation in regards to reducing the issues, full stop. We're doing everything we possibly can to move that as quickly as possible with that wider capital works and the likes.
Yes, that's correct. So work had ceased until instruction from the council to proceed. And so that work is underway. We're expecting a project management plan from our consultant team this month, and I'm working closely with the project manager or the project director to just on that, and so we're keeping very close to that. So yes, I'm confident that we're working very quickly to that end.
I think the question which has come to me from some residents is a concern with how our long-term plan processes work, that the major budget doesn't become available until the 1st of July. So we can give that absolute confidence that work is already happening to ensure that we can move as quickly as possible.
Yes, that's correct. A detailed planning stage going on right now. Yep.
Thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Mitchell, go.
Thank you. I did have a question on another topic. I was just waiting for that conversation to run its course. And it's about Bruce Jackson Street. It's mentioned on there in planning the renewals, Wellington Water considers resilience over the expected life of the asset, particularly in areas that may be prone to sea level rise, and that renewals are planned on that basis. I was just curious if you had any indication of what that means. Are they using different materials or different methodology? And is that already happening on any kind of waterworks down in that vulnerable area?
Yes, that's a general statement that reflects that when Wellington Water are planning any renewals or new works, that it takes into account those sorts of things. For instance, we're renewing the main sewer line along the foreshore, and so that basically, the work that's going on there took into account the long-term needs, 50, 60, whatever years, in meeting those requirements. And the same is happening here. In the future, I suppose, with the storm water in particular, if there are issues that need to be dealt with, then we would be looking to add, say, a pumping station or something to move water if we needed to in the future.
No more questions? the recommendation is that we receive and note this report, which I'm happy to move. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Mitchell, thank you. How refreshing it is to see in relation to the Gracefield Reservoir, this one is an urgent works on there, that something comes in at half the cost of what it was forecast to be. I'd love to see that more often in our papers, but excellent. Any other comments from people? I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, declare that carried. Right, we're on to the regulatory matters report on page 51. Invite Tim Johnson, Head of Planning, and our new Building Control Manager, Richard Barton, to tell us if there's anything extra that we need to know in relation to this matter.
No updates to report, so happy to take it as read, but also have Dean Bentley in relation to animal services and parking and environmental health as well, but noting that planning is still the most important of the regulatory services.
Welcome, Dean. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. With your leave, I've got two questions. Just particularly interested on page 57 around Marina Grove. The first of my questions was, were there any development contributions sought from the developer for this development? And the second question is, has anything been done to look at the widening of the entranceway to Marina Grove, particularly around access to emergency vehicles?
I'll cover some of that, and then I might call on John, because it's a bit of a crossover between planning and roading. But yes, we did secure development contributions from that development in accordance with our current development contributions policy. It will be in the vicinity of $400,000 towards contributions. Just noting that's across our water infrastructure as well as our roading. Specifically in relation to transport, 60,000 of that is allocated to transport improvements. So yes, part of that goes towards those improvements. We have looked at road widening of Marina Grove as a whole, and the costs of that were roughly $1 million. And there's also another assessment done on partial road widening, which came in around $250,000. So you can kind of see we've collected some contributions towards that, but the improvements that have been identified are more significant in relation to the funding. Anything to add, John, or does that?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. So, yeah, as part of what's been put forward for consultation of the long-term plan, there is a fund for looking at these streets such as Marina Grove and others where housing intensification has put additional pressure on existing roading and traffic. So that process is obviously still to go through, and we'll see where we end up. It's also in our in Council's submission for funding through the National Land Transport Program.
Just to follow up on that one, yeah, we've got development contributions, as should be the case, but there's also an instrument under the district plan where you can get financial contributions for particular streets where there's a known traffic impact if, you know, when there's a lot of growth there. I understand we pursued that, or at least investigated that opportunity, seeing as it's quite a substantial development in that very narrow street.
We did explore that, and in terms it comes back to through the district plan, you can take financial contributions towards specific improvements. But again, the weighing up the development contributions that the developer is paying along with the reserves contributions, which I haven't mentioned, which is another 200,000. Effectively, we would have been requesting another vicinity of $1 million from that developer to do those improvements. So it was out of scope, or not possible. What I would say is there's something else we're trying to do through the district plan review, which is to reduce the amount of units that triggers the need for a traffic assessment. And that would then provide a lever through the course of the application to say, for a development of 21 units, we can actually consider the impact on the street. And then that then provides a lever to say, as part of the application, what improvements can we secure as part of the development? So we're caught in a bit of limbo from when we had to change our district plan to just remove parking standards, and we were left with what's called a 60-unit high trip generator.
And so we've got this gap at the moment where anything under 60 units is kind of falling through the gaps. But I want to emphasise it's because we had to change the district plan in a certain way. But as I said, through the review, we want to bring that control back in so that the impact on our roads can be assessed, or I should say specific roads where it is an issue.
Councillor Mitchell.
Just for clarity though, there was a traffic assessment done for this development?
No, so again, but council has carried out its own assessment of work that's required, but there was no requirement for this development to provide a traffic assessment because essentially it is less than the 60 units under the current district plan.
We need to update that district plan. Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. So it also, on that page also, UD Street's escaped that as well then?
It has, but I would say that that development is providing 22 on-site car parks, so that's not a car-free. Again, just pointing it's a choice. A developer can choose to provide car parks. In that situation, there's 22 on-site car parks.
That's brilliant. A follow-up question, not relating to that, but back to the consenting process. Has there been any further update on 47 the Esplanade as to that process?
Is that the sign?
Yeah.
Yep, so we're waiting to have the hearing on that. That attracted quite a significant amount of interest, and the hearing is being held and people who have made submissions can have their say, and it will be considered by independent commissioners in the normal way. Yeah.
Further questions, councillors? All right, there is one. Councillor Stellinger.
I assume we're taking questions on the whole report, not just Tim's area? Oh, good. Firstly, just congratulations on the accreditation. I guess that's, sorry, I've forgotten your name already.
Richard Barton.
Yeah, thank you. Congratulations on achieving that. I know from experience in the past it can be a very challenging process and meeting all the requirements. In the report it talks about the consenting and how we're falling behind relative to our target and recently on the time frame for processing the consents, and their reasons are well given in the report, so thanks for that. My question is, what's the outlook going forward? Do you see a path to that improving, and if so, what kind of time period would you be thinking?
Sure. Yeah, we're over the worst in terms of our statutory performance. So our figures for February for processing are 61.8% statutory compliance, so we're on the uptick again. I would say as well, some of those figures I'm currently reviewing because some of our applications were not included as part of our statutory time frames calculation. So I suspect there's possibly a 10% uplift in some of those figures. So it might not be as dire as a read as what it's reported in this report. So in the next report, I'll come back with those figures rechecked. So in terms of the processing, we've got to, for IANS, demonstrate 95% compliance within a 2-month window. So that's what we'll be doing. We've had some discussions with IANS around that, and they're quite happy to. They understand there's some historic ones that are out on hold that can drop in at any time, and they can really knock out the percentage figures. So they're happy to exclude those from the calculations of 95%. So I'm confident that within 2 months we'll be up to 95%.
Thank you. Any further questions? This is another note and receive report, which I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stellinger, thank you. Could I echo Councillor Stellinger's congratulations on IANZ accreditation? It's been a lot of upheaval for your department. I note that the people doing that accreditation noted if it wasn't for the legacy issues, you'd be well up with the play on getting consent stuff through. Similarly with the resource consent team and our planning team, just constant pressure with the amount of resource consenting and building consenting coming through this council. I note a columnist recently suggested that Wellington should be renamed Lower Hutt given their attitude to some of these sorts of developments, and we were just pressing on. And I thought that speaks very well of our council. So yeah, look, a bouquet to Alison and the team, who the workload just never seems to stop. So well done.
Can I just add to that, that we're very lucky that we've got Richard on board, because he's actually been the consultant who's helped get us over the line. I've managed to put him on permanent staff. So
Good news.
taking care of my consultant problem.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Good policy. Councillor Dyer.
Yeah, I always love these reports. There's some really great highlights in here, particularly around a lot of new high-density developments happening within our CBD, which is great. Also great to read that nearly 300 LIMs have been issued over this time, and all of them within the statutory timeframes. However, I do still have some concerns about the trend we're seeing with the building consents being granted and the code of compliance. Both of these are around 42% for building consents being done within the statutory requirement and 57% for code of compliance. Understand the reasons in the paper for there being a big wave of new applications coming in because of the change to the building code, but do also note in paragraph 22 that we're about 30% less applications than we were this time last year, and 25% less than the year before when we had a huge spike because of changes to our district plan. So we're seeing less applications, but our performance is worse than it was back then. So yeah, these are two areas that I think we understand our issues and that we're trying to resolve, but I just would like to see a bit more done in this space.
If you'd like some explanation to that, it's how the workload comes in. We've got a static amount of workforce, and the workload comes in peaks and troughs. And we had a change to the building regulations, which caused a bit of a peak to come in. We're all prepared for that. We've got better since. We've now got a good forecasting tools in place that allow us to predict when peaks and troughs will come in several months and even years out. It allows us to better manage our workload, our team size, and so hopefully prevent this kind of thing from happening again.
It's good to hear, because obviously we're proposing some pretty significant increases to our development contributions from 1 July. So there'll be an even bigger spike over the next couple of months. And we're already kind of, I think, pushed to the absolute limit in looking at these numbers, and I just worry what's going to happen between now and July.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. I am going to support these noting recommendations, but I also want it noted, please, my disappointment that nothing can be done for the area of Marina Grove residents who have long been voicing their disapproval and concern for the development going ahead, and I really hope that all reasons and all future plans are being conveyed to them. Thank you.
Thank you. I think our officers are very aware of that situation in Marina Grove, but yeah, fair comment. Right, that motion has been moved and seconded. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Declare that carried. Thank you, Richard and Tim. Moving to temporary road closures for Anzac services. Firstly, Miratai Road. We found out at the draft agenda committee these are pretty much exactly the same as been applied for in past years, other than this is for a 3-year period for efficiency, so they don't, not so much paperwork. Seems like a very good idea. Avandro, have you got anything you wish to add to your report?
Nothing else to add. We have consulted with the businesses in the area, and also we've got support from the local board of the area.
Thanks. Councillors, any questions? Okay, the recommendations, big long ones, I won't read them all out. They're on page 69 of your agenda, and I'm happy to move them. Seeking a seconder? Councillor Mitchell, thank you. Any questions? Any comments, I should say? Put those recommendations, all those in favour, please say aye. Against? Declare that carried. Same deal with an Anzac Day service for Langs Road, Knights Road, Queens Drive closures. Recommendations are on page 76, also for a 3-year period. Any questions of our officers? Move those recommendations. Seeking a seconder, Councillor Barrett, thank you. Comment? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Declare that carried. Thank you. Right, page 83, the Transport Activity Management Plan. I'll invite Declan Millen, our Principal Advisor, Micromobility, who's going to speak to this item. Welcome, Declan. Is there anything that you wish to add to your report?
Well, tēnā nō koutou. I'll just give a bit of context. This is proactively being provided to you. It's a lot more detail than you would normally have, and I understand has been provided in the past. This document at 230 pages, we provide, and I sit here with a bit of trepidation that you may ask detailed questions. I'm happy to answer those outside of this. But to start with, I think the assurance you can take about this is it follows our practices in the past. It is an NZTA provided or document we provide to them to support our funding submission. They do a review themselves and provide us with feedback, which they did prior to Christmas. I was hoping that we would have our final feedback from them, but because of the timing of the government policy statement, the GPS, which only landed on Monday, that's pushed a lot of stuff back. So we have no more feedback from them at this point in time. They will still do that, and we'll touch on the impact of the GPS timing, but everything's been moved back. I don't want to deny you the pleasure of reading through that in detail, so I'll let you do that yourselves. What it does represent is a lot of work from when John was head of transport, his team, etc. It sets out lots of information that you can look at in your own time and at your own pace. So, any questions?
Before we take questions, that three-letter acronym has reminded me the long-awaited GPS is in from the government, and I'm going to ask John to give us just a quick verbal update on the implications of the government policy statement for us.
Thanks, Chair. So, yes, long-awaited came through on Monday night, the draft government policy statement. So, quite the shift from the previous version under the previous government. So, this time with economic growth and productivity, increased maintenance and resilience, safety and value for money are the key themes that come through. So with a much more of a focus on moving people and goods quickly and safely. So reducing congestion on roads, more productive and resilient transport network. And I know, with Eastern Hutt Road and various other things, the resilience piece was music to our ears. Driving economic growth and unlocking land for housing are two key things. So, we've got the region's biggest industrial area around Seaview. So, driving economic growth, reducing congestion, that also leads to the RONs back, or roads of national significance. So Cross Valley and Petone to Granada, which have been linked in the GPS. So there is quite a big focus there. Officers are working, we can talk about that a little bit later. I won't get too much into that now. But that is a key to moving freight and vehicles and people from industrial areas, from our eastern suburbs through to State Highway 2 and beyond. There's quite a bit of reform in the GPS this time. The establishment of the National Infrastructure Agency, or NIA, is quite a big focus on that. We don't know too much about that. There's a lot of work going on, so we'll see where that lands, and we'll update you as soon as we get any further information. The development of a 30-year plan is fairly critical, and the RONs are a big part of that. There's a lot of, whilst public transport probably doesn't have the same high profile as in the previous GPS, the big main public transport infrastructure, particularly around trains, still does. There are 5 key big projects in there. 4 of them are in Auckland, but one is around around mobility for down here. So fast tracking of consents, I think there was an announcement this morning about that, so we'll take the time to work through what that looks like for upcoming projects. Signals around alternate funding mechanisms. Governments talked about PPPs before and has previously done some PPPs for transport, obviously Transmission Gully being the closest to here. But offshore investment is another one that they are signalling they're going to have some conversations about to help fund the massive infrastructure deficit that we have. Congestion charging is another one around time of day. So There's been some work done on the background at NZTA and the ministry. We'll see where that comes out, but you know, probably thinking around that 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then 4 to 6 p.m. timing around congestion charging. So we'll see where that lands, but that is something that they will move quite quickly on, given the funding gap. So establishment of 10-year transport plans, which is great. I mean, we do our long-term plan anyway. So that's kind of aligning with the way local government goes. So we're pretty happy about that. In terms of other reforms, quite a big push towards roadside drug testing, with heading towards 50,000 oral drug tests a year across the country, which is huge. And a significant increase in testing for drink driving. So making the roads safer. I think the key thing here is making roads safer by improving the flow, taking drugs and alcohol off the roads rather than lowering speeds and doing speed bumps, I think is probably a key thing we've picked up through there. Walking and cycling, I think we all kind of knew that the funding for that wouldn't be as high as, or wouldn't increase at the same rates as previously. We're lucky here with Te Pura Horonuku and Noronga Te Petone Te Ara Tupua, which will take the bulk of the walking and cycling fund for the country based on the numbers in the draft plan. So those numbers, though, do include maintenance. So that won't fall under anything else. It'll fall under walking and cycling activity class. So it is something for us to be mindful of now that we've taken over Petone to Melling. It's been handed over to us. The shared paths and cycleways that fall out of Riverlink will be handed over to us as well. And we have more bays coming on, obviously, with Te Pura Horonuku. So we won't be maintaining or renewing Noronga Te Petone, though. So, because we pushed back on that quite strongly. There is a pothole fund, so so we'll work through what that means. I mean, that's maintenance, obviously, so quite a big focus on fixing potholes earlier before they become bigger issues and then become major renewals, which is good news. And the other key thing, I suppose, that coming through is increasing fines. So not only is another revenue stream, so not only with that drug and alcohol testing, but also increasing the fines associated with those and potentially other things as well, and increased public transport fares to help fund some of that. So there's a lot. The RONs, the roads of national significance, the key ones here for us are obviously Cross Valley and then Petone to Granada. There's also Otaki to North Levin. As far as the State Highway 2 Melling transport improvements is listed, we assume that is Riverlink in its entirety. So that's always also in there as well. So as far as our activity management plan goes, that was based on the previous draft GPS. There will need to be some tweaks, although when we put it together, we crystal ball gazed a little bit. Resilience is a big thing for us, as we know. Maintenance and renewals is a huge area and a big focus. So there will be some tweaks. To what extent, we just need to work through that with NZTA officers over the coming weeks. So open to any questions on any of that.
Excellent, John. Thank you for a very good summary. Councillor Mitchell.
I know there's not a lot of detail on this yet, John. In your opening statement, you said that Petone to Granada and Cross Valley connection were linked. Do you mean in terms of the layout of them, or do you think the government will be treating them as one grand project?
That's still to be worked through. They've always been, recently been looked at together. So we need to work through that with NZTA and the Crown over the coming weeks as to what that might look like and the respective roles in that process. So because there's a couple of councils, 3 councils with Greater Wellington, ourselves and Wellington, with land in particularly the Petone to Granada corridor. So there's that's not the most straightforward project, I don't think.
Any further questions? Councillor Dyer.
Thank you. The last recommendation is us noting that this won't come back to us unless there's any quite big changes. Obviously, I feel like there will be some big changes with the JIS now being issued, being quite a change from what the previous government did. I just wonder, is there any harm in this coming back to a future council once it has been updated with those changes?
Thanks, councillor. No, there's no harm. We think we've covered most bases. It would just depend on the timing of when the final version is due back to NZTA. We can report back on that, sir.
No further questions? Recommendations are on page 83. I'm happy to move them. Looking for a seconder. Deputy Mayor Lewis, thank you. Anyone wish to make comment? Councillor Stellinger.
Had to do a bit of a double take when John started talking because he said Ron's back. And of course, Ron Muir was our former head of transport. I thought maybe it enticed him out of retirement for some role. But on a more serious note, I just want to congratulate the staff on a very comprehensive document. It's very impressive to me, and thanks for putting it on our agenda to have a look at. And I did take a bit of a heart too from the summary of the GPS. I had my fears, just we're going to be chop things which were underway here, but it sounds like in some ways the timing of the change is quite fortuitous for us because we've locked in some of the major works in the areas where the funding's been cut back. So that's very good news. Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, just to add to my compliments on the report. It's very thorough. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but it is a good read, and it was really interesting actually to see in a document the extent of our network and the assets that we own and are responsible for, how many kilometres of road and footpath and how many street signs and lights and things. I don't think I've ever seen all that information presented so comprehensively before. So it's really interesting for us, I think, as governors to see what it is that you guys have to manage on our behalf. So thank you for the report.
Yeah. Can you pass on, Declan, our congratulations to Ashvak and Aaron and the others who put together this report? Because, yeah, it's really good to see the level of detail. And John, and the rest of the team. John, thank you. All right, the recommendation has been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Declare that carried. Just before I move on to the forward work programme, there was another apology tendered. Councillor Brown had a very late personal issue that cropped up. So I move her apology be accepted. Could I seek a second to Councillor Mitchell? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Declare that carried. Thanks. We're on page 315 now for the forward work programme. Any member have a question about that forward work programme? I'll move that we receive a note or receive it, approve it. Seconder? Councillor Stellinger, thank you. Comments? All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Declare that carried. Thank you. Questions? I have received no questions, so I will move to the exclusion of the public part of this meeting. And I move that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely recommendations to Te Konehira o Te Awa Kairangi, dated 27th of March, on Te Wai Takamori o Te Awa Kairangi property matters, and matters to do with the National Land Transport Plan and low-risk, low-cost projects, and the Cross Valley Connections Program update. Do I have a seconder for those items to go into in-committee? Councillor Mitchell, thank you. Anyone? I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Declare that carried. I declare the public part of this meeting closed at 3:26, and thank you all.